fasting does a lot of awesome things in your body. It's why you're here. It's why you're watching this video, because you know that it does, or you're curious to know more about what it does. Okay, but there are some very important things that go along with it. Okay, the world of electrolytes is a little bit of a foggy one. Okay, we're still trying to figure out exactly what goes on, but one thing is becoming quite abundantly clear, and that's the importance of magnesium after a fast. So in this video, we will cover what happens during a fast to your magnesium levels and why, and then we'll go into a relatively specific protocol that you can follow that might help restore magnesium levels, at least based on my own anecdotal experience and things that I've seen with others. So we're gonna have some fun. Never mind kind of the creepy room, creepy air mattress. This is just an extra spare area that we have, and I use it for filming. So I'm not sleeping on an air mattress. That's just there. Okay. Anyhow, please do hit that red subscribe button. Please do hit that bell icon if you haven't already. We have new videos dropping daily, and we are the internet's leading intermittent fasting channel. So I think you'll really enjoy what we put out. Anyhow, let's go ahead and jump in. So during a fast, you have these things called catecholamines that are elevated. What catecholamines are your levels of adrenaline, they're your noradrenaline, your epinephrine. Okay, what happens is during a fast, these get elevated and they help stimulate lipolysis. They help stimulate fat burning. It's a, quote, stress response of the body when you go into a fasted state. All good things that we want. Now, one of the major things that we have to focus on is when we have an elevation of these catecholamines, we do notice a reduction in tissue levels of magnesium. Now, that's just one way that fasting ultimately depletes magnesium more than anything else. There's another big thing that we have to talk about. Okay? During a fast, your body does whatever it can to keep your blood levels of electrolytes stable. And what that means is it pulls electrolytes like magnesium, potassium, and phosphorus out of the cell and puts them into the bloodstream in order to keep your blood levels of electrolytes stable. Your body will do whatever it can to keep your blood levels of electrolytes stable because that is important. That is the energy current, that is the electrical current going through your body in a lot of ways. So if that means that we have to deprive a cell of it temporarily, that's fine. The problem is during a fast, you're not taking in any new magnesium or any new minerals, right? So you're drawing it out of the cell and into the bloodstream, and you're left with nothing else there to support it or balance it. Then what happens is you end up eating, you break your fast, and you have what is called a refeeding syndrome. Now, refeeding syndrome is a term that is used usually in longer term fasts. Okay, it was developed as a term after World War II when we looked at people that were going through periods of starvation and then would come back and eat, and they'd have all these neurological issues and they were trying to figure out what was going on. Well, here's what's actually happening. Here's why you might feel a little bit foggy and kind of weird after you break a fast. Okay, all the electrolytes are in your bloodstream, right? Then all of a sudden you eat something. Well, what happens when you eat something? You have a spike of insulin, and that insulin all of a sudden tells your body to let the glucose that you just ate or the food that you just ate go into the cell. Well, what happens is all those electrolytes that were in the bloodstream now have an avenue to get into the cell. So they go into the cell, and by laws of osmolarity, once some of those minerals go into the cell, I shouldn't say all the water, but a lot of the water follows. Okay, and when the water follows, more minerals follow. So suddenly you have this huge gradient of electrolytes that are in the bloodstream in balance, and all of a sudden they're flowing and rushing into a cell. Okay, this triggers your serum levels of minerals to drop, and they drop fast. And magnesium is one of the big ones. It drops extra fast and it throws a lot of things off. Not only is it not good for you, but it can make you feel really weird and at least a minor level, make you feel very lethargic. Now, interestingly enough, magnesium and insulin have what is called a reciprocal relationship. Okay, very interesting. They do work together. You see, insulin allows the regulation of magnesium to go from the extracellular space of the cell into the intracellular space, meaning insulin allows magnesium to get into the heart of the cell where it needs to be. A lot of times we come from a world where we hear the word insulin and we think it's bad automatically. Insulin's only bad in excess. We need it. It helps cells work, right? So insulin lets the magnesium into the cell, and then once in the cell, magnesium helps insulin do its job in a sense that it allows glucose to be processed properly. It assists in the enzymatic reactions that are involved in what is called glycolysis, creating energy from carbohydrates. You might be wondering, well, I'm eating low carb, I don't eat carbohydrates after my fast. You still have a level of glycolysis that occurs, so it still applies. So basically, magnesium and insulin is sort of a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of relationship. So do the math. If you're low on magnesium at the end of a fast already, and then all of a sudden you become extra low because they all flooded into a cell, where's the magnesium to help the glucose get into the cell next? You end up with high levels of glucose that aren't going to allow you to function properly, potentially, high blood sugar that is going to make you feel foggy and make it so the cell isn't getting what it needs. Okay, it's a big problem, and that's where magnesium comes in. Now, there was a study that was published in Oxidative Medicine and Cellular Longevity that demonstrated that magnesium is required for proper ATP formation, energy formation at the mitochondrial level. So that simply means that without magnesium, our bodies do not create the energy currency that allows us to thrive. So energy slump after a fast could be the case. Now, additionally, the same study demonstrated that virtually every single nerve reaction in the body requires the interplay between calcium and magnesium. Okay, they're constantly a game of cat and mouse, balancing each other, allowing nerve signal, nerve transduction, these things to occur. So it's very important. By the way, I'm going to give you a protocol in just a second, but a lot of you are probably wondering, my recommended magnesium is down below. I put a link down below to Jigsaw because it's a chelated form, which means it breaks down a little bit slower in your system and doesn't cause as much of like the gastric distress. So highly, highly, highly recommend them. Put them down below. They do support this channel, full disclaimer, okay? But they still are my go-to. I never want to run out of that stuff because I use it all the time when I'm fasting. After I break a fast, I just use it all the time. So anyway, check them out down below in the description. So here's kind of a little protocol, and I'll explain how this protocol would work. When you get close to the end of your fast, it's wise to have a little bit of sodium. Now, I mean this just a small amount, even a couple 100 milligrams of sodium with some water, salt with some water. What this is going to do is it's going to bring at least the sodium levels into the blood, so you're going to have a little bit of a combatant effect for when you do break your fast. So then 30 minutes later, when you do eat some food, you at least have some sodium that's already in the bloodstream, and you're not getting a big surge of it coming from the diet, so you're not having as dramatic of a gradient, okay? And then what you want to do is you want to be having your magnesium with your break fast meal, okay? Now, if you're eating foods that are rich in magnesium, which I'm not going to go on and on talking about right now, then that's great. But I would recommend adding magnesium with your break fast meal. And this is relatively newer science, so stuff I haven't even talked about in videos from a couple years ago, right? Adding magnesium to break the fast allows it to be along with the food. It's not skewing those minerals nearly as much. You could also add some potassium and also add some phosphorus if you're really trying to keep it balanced, but I'd say magnesium, potassium are the most critical. And then if you are utilizing carbohydrates after you break your fast, because there's different situations. Some people eat just protein, some people eat fats. I usually recommend eating just protein and having the carbs later, but point is, if you're having carbohydrates within an hour or 2 hours after breaking your fast, it's wise to have a small amount of thiamine. Okay, usually like 100 milligrams, all you need. Small amount of thiamine and probably 200 to 400 milligrams of magnesium. Full disclaimer, this is just what I would recommend. I'm not a doctor. The reason you want thiamine is because when you're fasting, you deplete your thiamine stores, and thiamine is involved in glucose processing. Okay, in order to actually utilize the glucose properly, we need thiamine, and if we're depleted in it, we don't use the glucose properly, which stunts this whole process, right? So magnesium and thiamine work super well together, but the thiamine is really only critical if you're having carbohydrates after the fast. Most critical is a little bit of salt before you break your fast, and then of course the magnesium after you break your fast. Now, I know that this was a long-winded explanation, but I feel like magnesium needs a lot more attention than it's getting. And I feel like if this video helps spread the importance of magnesium overall in terms of just every kind of dietary pattern, I think we can have a lot of success. But in the case of fasting, it's made a big difference in how my energy levels are after I break it. I don't feel that fogginess anymore. Anyhow, please do keep it locked in here on my channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, and I'll see you tomorrow.